Shalom. In this version of contemplative participation, the focus will be anxiety. Lately I've heard so many people complain about anxiety, and perhaps there might be a number of factors involved, reasons for the spate of anxiety. The first thing that we would like to remind everybody about is that contemplative practice has two basic tenets, two building pillars, if you want. And the one is grounding in the love of God, and the other one is a sense of oneness, connection. So every spiritual practice, every contemplative practice will always include those two basic elements. Therefore, when we're talking about anxiety and contemplative means of managing it, we will also start with these two elements, namely grounding in the love of God, and then also oneness or connection. So therefore, I'd like you to just sit in a comfortable position, become aware of your breathing, and as you breathe in deeply, just open up. Just experience every in-breath as an opening to possibility. And as you're opening like that, just allow air to flow in and remind you of life. Let every breath be a celebration of life. And then we ground ourselves by just becoming aware of our feet. Become aware of your feet resting on the floor. And as you allow your feet to just rest on the floor, just be reminded of being anchored, of being rooted, grounded in the love of God. And as you rest in this experience, you might even feel your feet becoming heavier, confirming the grounding. And then the oneness. As you're sitting like that, your feet on the floor, reminded of grounding, then also be reminded that we share this, that you're never isolated, that you're never separate. But as we share this grounding, we become one. And allow pain, joy, that which you're experiencing, to also be shared. And realize that there's no need for you to feel isolated in your grief, in your pain, even in happiness. Just be reminded that there's a connection. You are connected. There's a oneness. Now that you're grounded, and reminded of oneness. The first contemplative means of helping with anxiety, or against anxiety then, is by what we can call a contemplative hug. Just to remind you of how this works, as you're sitting there, just place your right hand across your heart, in your armpit more or less. Your right hand across your heart into your armpit. And your left hand, place your left hand on your right upper arm and just sit like that for a while. And as you sit like that, you might feel safety. As a calmness comes over you, you might just feel safe and comforted. Sit like this for a while until you feel safe and relaxed. The second contemplative practice, which we might utilize when experiences of anxiety come over us, is breathing itself. First of all, just become aware of breathing, of the breathing process, the rhythm as your chest rises and falls. And then, as you're breathing in slowly, deeply, like this, just experience a certain opening up as you breathe. Opening up as you breathe in allows you to be reminded of opening up to the care and the protection that God has meant for you. So breathe in deeply. Just experience that opening up as you're breathing in, like that. And then, as you open up, just experience a certain release of anxiety. Perhaps a release of the knot of anxiety. And then as you breathe out, imagine, visualize, breathing out the anxiety that is keeping you captive. Breathe in and open up to a release of anxiety. And breathe out and visualize how you're actually breathing out anxiety that is keeping you captive. And do this until once again you feel centered, you feel the calmness come over you, and you can rest in that. The third contemplative practice, which we are going to employ against anxiety. The third practice. And for this one, you need to stand up. It's actually best to take off your shoes and stand with your bare feet on the ground. So once again, we're going to ground ourselves. The third practice, therefore, is grounding it. And we're going to do this in a specific way. Just stand with your feet comfortably, shoulder width apart. And as you stand like that, just feel how you're supported by the ground upon which you're standing. And then, as you become aware of the stability provided, the support provided, just feel your legs and how your legs prop you up, working in synchronicity perhaps, with the stability that you experience on the ground. And then, as you become aware of being in balance, stable, just feel the calmness in your core. Just feel that calmness in your core. And now, as you experience being grounded like that, bring your forearms up to a horizontal position, your upper arms in a vertical position. In other words, you're just standing with your arms against your sides, and then just pick up your hands more or less to the position in line with your belly button. Now, in a very controlled fashion, slowly, just push anxiety away from you. In a very controlled way, just push anxiety away from you. And now that you've pushed it away from you, just turn your hands, palms upward, and pull towards your core a certain relief of anxiety, a calmness. Once again, in a very controlled fashion, just pull peace, calmness, security towards your core. And you can repeat this slowly, in a very controlled way. Just push anxiety away from you. And now that you've separated yourself from anxiety, externalized it, just turn your hands, palms upward, and pull peace, security, safety towards your core. And once again, in a very slow, controlled way. And then, lastly, the fourth contemplative practice that we're going to employ against anxiety is surrender. Breathe in deeply again. And let us just remind ourselves of the process of surrender. surrender might be considered to be a 3-step process. We will start by acknowledging the presence of anxiety. Identify there where you have a physical experience of the anxiety. Perhaps it's not being able to breathe. Perhaps it's feeling as if something heavy rests on your chest. But identify, acknowledge, do not ignore, try and avoid this or deny it. Acknowledge the presence of anxiety. And then, once we have acknowledged it, and this is very counterintuitive because we will welcome anxiety. We will welcome it. By welcoming anxiety, you're no longer allowing anxiety to be the terrorist ruining your life. Now it becomes a guest. And this is the first way in which you're actually taking back the calmness, the peace. So welcome it. You may even call it a name. Something like tightness. As you say, welcome here, tightness. So you acknowledge the presence of anxiety, and then secondly, you welcome it. And then, once you've welcomed anxiety, you can then, by opening your hands, release it. Let it go. And as you open your hands like that, you might even feel certain coolness, almost like a gentle, cool breeze flow over your hands, over the palms of your hands. Acknowledge it whenever you feel anxiety coming on. Welcome it, and then release it by opening your hands. And do this as often as it is necessary. Every time anxiety comes to pounce on you or lurks around the corner, just surrender it. So therefore, now we've got 4 means of spiritually, contemplatively managing anxiety. First of all, what we call the contemplative hug. Secondly, the breathing process whereby we actually breathed out anxiety. Thirdly, grounding with that controlled pushing away, separating ourselves, externalizing anxiety. And lastly, surrender. And do this as often as it is necessary. And please do give me feedback on the success of these practices. Francois Wessels, wishing you Shalom.